Cultivated Marketer, episode 44, Scaling Boutique Brands Through Experience with MC Reinert. What if scaling your brand wasn't necessarily about doing more, but more about doing it authentically and taking advantage of every sense where the human brings in information? So this episode, we've had the pleasure of talking with Mary Catherine Reinert, or MC, as she prefers to be referred to. And it was great conversation we had with MC. She mentioned smell once through the conversation. I really wanted to spend more time. We had such a great extended conversation with her. Honestly, I think we joked before the conversation, even during the conversation, we could have made this a 4-part. Might have to have her back because I just want to have a conversation about smell. And
I would be game for that.
And the other thing is, when we do the social media posts about this episode, she said she was going to ask us questions, and we never got into the question on that. I was expecting her to ask each of us, so I may even ask each of you this question, channeling MC.
Oh,
like if you thought about your brand or your personal brand, or even your personal brand, and it had a smell associated with it.
Oh.
What would that be? And if you want me to start, because I thought of this.
You should start, definitely.
I would say mine's coffee. Like as a child, I didn't love the taste of coffee. But as a child, I would come in from a hot day, my mom would keep a can of Folgers in the freezer, and I would stick my head into the freezer to cool off. And then I just found my love of coffee. Even before I enjoyed coffee as a college student, I would open that can and just breathe that in. And so the jolt that we provide our clients, I was sitting there thinking, if we were to have smell-o-vision and I had a scratch and sniff sticker for Sparkade, I think it'd be coffee.
Man, okay. So I don't even know how to answer this. So this is I'm pulling up my planner that has the logo of the Nonprofit Comms Club on it. And just to help me think about, like, that's what I'm picturing. So I had one of my members say, she said, when I'm in the Nonprofit Comms Club, it feels like walking into an event with your best friend and you instantly know what the other person is thinking. And so I thought, okay, it's like, what smells like, I can take a breath. I'm safe. I can be really open about my challenges I'm facing as a communicator. Like, what does that smell like? And I almost think maybe it smells like the library that she talked about in the podcast. MC talked about the library. And I know when I walk into a library, I kind of feel like I have that same sense of, okay, I can find a book. Or for me, I have to love to work from libraries. So for me, it's like, oh, good. It's a nice, quiet place to get some work done. So I don't know what that smell is, but it's something. The smell of a book. Maybe that's the smell of my brand. I don't know.
I love it. Sorry, man. You guys are like, no, you guys are so mad at me right now.
I love it.
I'm just geeking out on all the smells I've got going here. God, I think probably mine has changed based on the eras in my life, particularly as I get older at this point and have hit a milestone birthday and things like that. I think that, in my younger days, it's probably a kind of like a freshly mowed lawn because, I'm outside a lot. That was sort of my brand. I loved the outdoors and just, did a lot of yard work, frankly, as a young person. These days, it's more, how about like a warm, like fireplace in the winter? Because I'm trying to be very approachable now in my job, right? I need for students to feel like they can approach me and being very conscious of things like, power dynamic and that type of thing. I just want to appear approachable. And so now I'm kind of a warm, cozy fire, Brent. So
you are very approachable. As someone who was a student in your program, you are very approachable. So I like the fireplace smell and scent.
I like the fireplace. I love a good book too. So this may be why I enjoy spending time with both of you. And thanks for humoring me. And MC, thank you so much for inspiring this fit of madness that inspired us this afternoon. So now I'm going to let you two. What takeaways other than Brent's smell-o-vision? What did you take away from the conversation with MC?
And by the way, shout out to KCIBC for another fantastic business communicator summit last week. I know we talked some about that in the episode, and MC sort of came in and really took the event by storm with her presentation that really had, kind of, again, standing room only attendance and things like that. She really did a fantastic job. But I think really for me with MC, it's just her unique take on marketing and on branding, which was sort of a topic of that conference anyway. And so, she approaches it from this aspect of relating it to senses. And again, don't want to spoil because we'll hear the complete detail on that. But I just love, it's a fresh take, right? It's a fresh take on an old topic that has probably been written about more than any other thing we have in marketing, right? In terms of branding. I think the Google searches and the bookshelves are just exploding with that. And so, but it's clear that the way she frames it is something that's really, allowed her to build a quite a very successful business. And as a speaker, she articulates it, very, very well. And I'm just glad that we got a chance to do a deep dive sit down with her, because I didn't get a chance to hear all of her presentation. I got to hear some of it last week, and I was just super impressed.
Yeah, I would love to see her as a keynote somewhere. I think she'd be a phenomenal keynote speaker. So I'm sure that's the trajectory of her career. For me, there were several things that I felt like hit home. One of the things that she said multiple times, though, that I really loved is just about being you. And I know that might sound cheesy, the authenticity piece, but she really does. When she talks about working with a client and helping a founder understand who they are, why they started their company. For me in the nonprofit space, why did someone start a nonprofit? Why are they leading this nonprofit? Why did the nonprofit start? Like, I think that's a really good place for any marketer to start, because you have to first understand who you are, what makes you unique, and then that can build out your brand strategy. And so thinking of it through well, she said 7 senses, which is so fascinating. I think that becomes a more tangible way to build out a brand marketing strategy, and thinking through the lens of all those senses that someone might experience as they interact with your brand. I thought that was just on point.
Yeah, that particular point resonated with me as well, just because in a couple different iterations of either clients I've worked with or experiences I've had, some of the best moments where you've had organizations live that mission have been the founder wrote a manifesto, and that manifesto was revisited. Or you've had, the other thing she spoke to as well was this notion of organizations being treated like islands. And
I love
that was great.
where they shouldn't, because the metaphor really is almost thinking like the organization's a hand, and we're all functioning members of one hand, right? A finger, a thumbs, all functioning. And the best organizations had guiding principles that viewed the organization worked like, and the culture really lived being like one hand. We're one team, we're one thing, and we need to break down these boundaries and do it the best way. And so to hear her speak to really getting back to that why and that mission, yeah, it resonated with me and had me really reflecting on some of the different stops I've had in my career.
Yeah, it was great. I can't wait for people to listen.
Yeah, the other thing I took away from this, and it was maybe more subtly delivered than we typically do too. Again, this being a show really about professional development, when folks listen to this and they're thinking about their own career, I think there are things in this that they should be listening for around. One was I was sitting there thinking once again about Fred Cook, because she was starting at the loading dock, right? I was sitting there is like, loading dock meets Ask the Captain. What are we doing?
Yeah.
A person's career journey and what she invested in her own particular career journey around really making it her mission of personal discovery and learning the organization, but starting at the dock, right? So, and then also strategic thinking. There are very solid nuggets that she provided along the way around challenge. One, Julie, you pointed to, which is understanding the mission of the organization and the big why. The other part of that is even just the way you think about being a great consultant. There's a lot I thought she offered along the way around challenging conventions, the way you ask questions, the way you think about the organization, the way even as a creative, you think about KPIs and metrics. I just thought were really powerful all throughout. So
yeah, it was great.
Yeah, cool. Anything else that you guys want to offer about MC, or we should just turn folks loose and let them
Turn them loose. Let's go.
All
right, we're turning you loose, folks. Enjoy our conversation with MC Reinert. Welcome to Cultivated Marketer, where we talk marketing professional development so your garden of opportunity grows. This is Brent Bowen.
I'm Matt Tidwell.
And I'm Julie Masson.
And our guest is a bold brand strategist, and we're going to get into how bold here in a minute, and founder of Fortissima, a firm specializing in multi-sensorial marketing for boutique hospitality and lifestyle brands, evolving from corrugated packaging designer to luxury event creator to strategic powerhouse. She challenges industry norms with provocative insights and deconstructive approaches. Ooh. She transforms conventional marketing into innovative solutions that forge deeper connections. Her core philosophy, authentic self-knowledge breeds confidence and unapologetic expression. Beyond traditional marketing, our guest empowers brands to discover their CereSense, a framework rooted in immersive identity and sensory alignment. She believes passion paired with intentional action changes the world, helping visionaries communicate powerfully and serve purposefully. Mary Catherine Reinert, welcome to the show. Or better yet, MC, right? Everybody henceforth is supposed to know you as MC. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so very much for having me. It's going to be a great conversation.
Yes, it is. You've already prepped us that it's going to be a little spicy. So I think we're all here for that. Okay, MC, talk to us about sensorial marketing. So I met you last month. I had never heard of sensorial marketing. And I came to Brent and Matt and I was like, you guys, there's this girl here in Kansas City that does this amazing marketing work and it's sensorial marketing. I said, we need to get her on the show. I had never heard of that. So please tell us more about that. Tell us, it's a super niche area of marketing that most people don't know about, including me as of last month until I met you. What is it and how did you get into it?
Yeah, so sensorial marketing is the intentional design across all senses. And because we don't do anything basic around here, we have implemented a couple more to bring us to 7 senses for a full embodied brand experience. This is the opportunity where a brand brain comes alive and connects deeper with an internal team, but also external customer relationships. And most brands live in the sense of sight. I think we can all agree that our visual sense of sight is always turned on. But how do we turn up our other senses if our brand was a human walking down the street that we are proud and loud to hold hands with, but contains human qualities, characteristics, and senses? And so sensorial marketing begs the question of, what does a brand feel like in your body? What does that connection look like if someone is walking into your physical space, but also your digital space? And then in true Fortissima fashion, our tagline, what is that aftertaste? Making it worth it after someone lingers after the transaction or when they purchase or walking their journey with you. And so call it by accident or the path that really needed to weave together and happened for this work to begin through packaging and designing luxury events. Those events traditionally are sensorial designed by default to make you feel and say something afterward. And I started thinking to myself, why has this not been systematized across marketing? And that truly was how the Diva mindset, our brand strategy process, and CereSense to discover your brand brain and articulate your senses, those are really born from that.
Wow. Okay. That's amazing. I have lots of questions that I would like to go into, but I'm going to try and hold back. I know, Brent, you've got something. I will keep it back.
No, I think we're all going to explore this topic of this. I love it. The 7 senses. And it's interesting. You talk about that first entree being the eyes, right? And so as part of this journey into the full 7 senses, you started your personal journey from a packaging designer. And I'm a big craft beer lover. So like corrugated packaging design, I'm looking at the box of the 4 beers sitting on the shelf, right? So I'm thinking about that site being the first thing that draws me in, to then maybe experiential from that luxury event. Tell us a little bit about your work. Your journey's been a bit unconventional. How has that evolution from designer to event creator to strategic branding expert, how's that evolution shaped the way you think about marketing and how you deconstruct it?
Absolutely. So I like to say that I did not come through the front door of marketing. My degree was not in marketing. I came through the loading dock because of the packaging. And so working with corrugated packaging and in that industry wasn't just a job right out of university, right out of college. That was a true apprenticeship for the work that I do today. And I was obsessed with the design process, learning from those engineers, obsessed with the way they deconstructed what was already working over and over and over again to ensure integrity and intentionality of the flute, the paper for the cardboard box that was being used. And there was something about the experience of seeing that POS display on the Walmart floor, working with Walmart executives at 22 years old, to a package that you received at your front door. There is an experience around that and weaving in branding alongside of that. I had built the business, and from the school of the hard knocks on the side, literally door knocking, had built its own legs, and I tiptoed out of packaging and into luxury events and designing events, whether that be corporate events, nonprofit events, fundraisers, galas, weddings, conferences. And I saw that strategy, that intentionality magnified through the senses, stepping into the events industry. I took that macro level view of seeing, hey, how do these touch points elevate the senses of a vision statement, of a mission statement, and tied to a brand? That's where the beautiful combination of events continue to happen and linger and play in that sensorial experience. And I think all of us immediately brings to mind a sense from a decade ago. Wouldn't you all agree that there is probably something from an event from a decade ago that you can remember? And that's how it will continue to live on. And so thinking about deconstructing, it was exciting that I get to sit down with a brand and challenge ideas that a brand is separate from operations, or that marketing is separate from guest experience or customer service or experience, and that design is separate from financial performance. All of those should weave together, branding and marketing and the brand's vision, creating that ecosystem, so that it was a true evolution of thinking differently, of evolving through different disciplines and verticals instead of staying in one lane. I truly believe that this was the work that needed to happen. It was just a matter of time of weaving those things together. And the past really has shaped this line of work and what I do today.
Oh, really cool. Hey, MC, thank you again so much. My colleagues are absolutely right. I'm so happy that we were able to get you on here, because I happened to attend KCIBC BCS last week, and I know you were a speaker there. And yeah, to say the least, you were kind of ended up being sort of the talk of the meeting with your presentation. And so we're really glad that we're getting a chance to follow up. And also, and I love that where you just left off, because, event marketing is something we've talked about in this show and before in terms of its role as a brand builder, right? I mean, I think particularly in this post-pandemic age where, we're all looking to have more personal touch points, building a brand via events and just having that more personal touch, I think is really going to catch fire. And really, we've seen that happen. So glad that you're an evangelist for that as well. But hey, getting back to your core and a little bit about how you talked about how your agency works with brands. I know you challenge brands to really fully commit to their identity. You talk about that, to not move away from it, not dilute it. But things happen, right? Revenue pressures increase, et cetera. How do leaders stay unapologetically kind of aligned instead of defaulting or trying to imitate or those kinds of things?
Yeah. Thank you, Matt, so much. Thank you to KCIBC for having me last week. My topic, personality under pressure, resonates so much with this question as well. whether it is revenue pressure or performance pressure or personality pressure, you're right. There is going to be chaos. There's going to be pressure that is added to leaving an identity, and where can we see this go so aligned with who we are and working with brands, because fear is really, really loud at the end of the day. And there are so many traps that we get caught up in or could potentially be caught up in if we are not so grounded in who we are in our human brand that our brain brand really explains and explores. We get caught up in copying competitors. We get caught up in discounting impulsively. We are starting to add services and products and offerings. And all of a sudden we're adding vowels and thesaurus written materials. And the list can go on. And the thing of it is that you can't out discount, but you can outdo you. And when you dilute that identity, you lose and fire your most loyal customers because they don't know who you are. And you start courting and serving customers, clients, and audience that was never going to come back anyways. And so a lot of the time, the key really is clarity and consistency and that self-awareness, because history will repeat itself. The pressure will still be on. We will have another recession or a pandemic. History will repeat itself. And I truly believe that growth will be magnified if a founder realizes who they are not for. What emotional outcomes are we looking for and what we're trying to deliver? And why does that experience exist to begin with? Sticking very firm with conviction in those questions guides us in our growth to not lean toward those traps or those identity shifts or imitation.
Yeah, I love that. Providing a framework to kind of guide things. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Hey, before I pass the baton, just getting back, I know we talked a little bit about the KCIBC event, but I'm kind of a geek for presentation styles, and I stuck my head into your room, and you have kind of a very unique presentation. It's very high energy. You use a lot of humor. You get people very engaged, whether they want to, or yeah, kind of whether they want to or not, right? You're sort of jumping out of your shoes there, MC. Is that? I assume that's strategic. Is that not everybody can pull that off, right? I mean, if I pulled that off, people would be leaving the room in droves.
That's not for your brand. That's for sure, Matt.
Exactly.
Did MC leave her shoes there when she jumped out of them?
I'm not sure, but it was impressive. I will say that. But anyway, just how did you develop that style? Is it something that was acquired? Was it instinctual? I just think it was really well done. I know it's getting us off topic here, but if you haven't seen MC present, you need to.
It's prepping, especially for KCIBC or the Business Communicators Summit. It gave me an opportunity to go, hey, how can we look at this a little bit differently? I'm always about turning up the volume on marketing. Marketing can still be fun. It can be playful. It can be exciting. And developing the name Personality Under Pressure absolutely was going to use the story about Under Pressure, the Vanilla Ice on how he stole the bass line from David Bowie and Queen's Under Pressure. That ding, 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 ding. Absolutely. And so you don't say the words under pressure and not have that instantly come to your mind. So it was built from that. But I have been speaking to nonprofits and event marketing and digital women and other communicators, Digital Summit, and had the opportunity to speak at such a very young age. Like I said, even at 22 years old, speaking to Walmart executives, how crazy is that? But to be able to articulate, hey, this is who I am, this is what I represent, but also these are the values that align with the combination of the two. And then we have to start turning up the dial on what we're doing and having more fun and letting it go. The professionalized jargon is not going to hit home. It's not going to be remembered. And I want someone to take one thing away. Whether it was me getting up there and doing the chicken dance, I'm always down for a chicken dance moment. Or if there was one touch point or one sense or one trap that we're not going to get into anymore, hey, then I've done my job. And knowing that starts to resonate and that starts to really get wheels spinning and wheels going. And so many people resonate with, hey, I do need to turn up my own dial. I may represent my company and my values, and I'm true to that. There's always a level of integrity with that. But also, you're going to see a personality come to life And that's what I want people to be okay with. We may say we're authentic, we're authentic, we're authentic. That seems to be a buzzword anymore. That's on trend, I think, right now. But how authentic are you when you're in a room talking about what you do?
Oh man. Yeah, what did you say about the chicken dance?
Oh man, you missed it. Although I should have done It's Electric. That's another one that could have been brought in there too. Somebody called me out on that and asked.
Oh man, I wish I could have seen that.
It was funny, but the chicken dance really is when that pressure is rolling strong. We start flapping and clapping and adding vowels and traps start happening. And
oh man,
I bet somebody will remember the next time they hear the chicken dance, if that's even still played at weddings or events.
It should be. If it's not, maybe not. Man, well, I'm sad I missed the chicken dance. I was in the room next door in the session for nonprofits because, of course, I'm going to go to that one because I work with nonprofit communicators. So I want you to talk a little bit about how, because you've obviously said this, you're just talking about this, about how it's on trend to be authentic. So you've talked about how authentic self-knowledge breeds confidence and expression. And I have seen that in you. I've seen that. I mean, even as you were just talking about your talk at KCIABC, BCS. And by the way, as an aside, communicators, we've got to get better with all of our acronyms. For anyone who does not know, KCIABC stands for the Kansas City chapter of the International Association of Business Communicators. And then BCS stands for Business Communicator Summit. Okay, there's your PSA. Okay, so.
And PSA is public service.
PSA is public service announcement. That's right. See? Oh, man.
Sorry, I couldn't resist, Julie.
I did. I broke my elbow. Oh, man. Okay, I'm sorry, I'm getting us a little off topic, but I just have to do that every time we use the acronyms that I know people might not use. I thought, oh gosh, we got to remind people what that means. Anyway, okay, talk to us about how you work with founders, helping them discover deeper self-knowledge before building and outward-facing campaigns. And if possible, I'd love to hear how sensorial marketing and everything you were just talking about, how does that apply to a nonprofit brand that you would think sensorial marketing wouldn't work for? So I'd love to hear how you work with founders, specifically helping them discover what it looks like for an outward-facing brand, company, outward-facing campaign.
Yep. So starting inward for sure, rather than relying on those expensive mood boards and messaging guidelines that seem to be all the rave all the time. But I want to know, what does a founder actually believe about this world that made them create the thing, whether that be this product or the service? I'm going layers deep down into the roots because I want to know what they were unwilling to compromise at that time and get into the brain of where it initially started, that discovery phase of when they were just beginning the business. And there's a lot to be said about what you want people to say, not just your audience or customers, but the ones that are watching, your team. And going inward for sure really allows that deeper self-knowledge to come to life in a safe space, start at that ground level. Because oftentimes, most brands are an extension of the founder's psychology to begin with. And so it's really getting down deep into, hey, what was that original foundation? And answering that with the conviction of a solid foundation, then developing the identity, the senses, the campaigns, and so on and so forth. Because otherwise, we're performing a version that we think will sell without really getting down into the roots of it. And so self-knowledge truly is easier when it's done to begin with. And going into your point, Julie, about nonprofit marketers or just the nonprofit industry, developing that knowledge of the mission, why you're doing this on a day-to-day basis, using that as a catalyst to formulate stories that are on the website, impact that is going out into the world, understanding that we are hit a lot of times with different messaging and staying so congruent with who we are as a foundation, but also using those stories, being proud of those stories. I think a lot of times we shrink when we have success, especially founders of nonprofits. Even though they say, hey, we're going to get new donors or we're going to work with new businesses on sponsorships or we're getting people in the door for a gala, to understand and wrap their arms and their hands around that mission means tooting our horns a little bit louder to ensure that you're bringing the people in the room that are going to continue to be a ride or die, hold your hand along the process of making that vision and mission come to life every single day. Because it doesn't stop when the event time is over or when that campaign is up on Giving Tuesday, for instance. We want to make sure that we are authentically aligned with those that are continued to follow that message. Even if we have to push a little deeper into that story, man, this is when we start really exercising. What kind of marketer are you? Are you willing to go to bat? Are you willing to do the extra sauce, spice, sass on top to make sure that story really resonates?
Man,
and that mission really comes to life.
I feel like you're calling out all these sacred cows in the industry, and I'm here for it. So I could especially see with nonprofits who are doing large galas and events, that's where I could really see sensorial marketing being applicable. I mean, I think it's applicable across the board, but especially when you're talking about events, I thought, oh, yes, this really tracks for me. So, man, thank you. That's great.
Yeah, and I'm picking up something that you just said in that statement, and you spoke to it a little bit, but very specifically a moment ago around this mission, the mission coming to life every day, right? So a lot of this is founder strategic planning, self-expression, the why. But you mentioned earlier, it's also around how we deliver an experience with maybe somebody when they call the front office, right? The brand extension goes all the way to that seamless execution. It's part of that core promise, right? And so when you've been looking and working with your clients, whether it's in boutique hospitality, nonprofit, lifestyle brands, there can be a breakdown. We often say it doesn't matter what kind of industry or organization, you commonly see that breakdown between vision and operational follow through. Where do you most often see that breakdown? And why do you think that's occurring?
The confusion really is between aesthetic consistency with experiential consistency. And I think I touched on this a little bit earlier, that we are a industry or a world that is obsessed with aesthetics anymore. And while that Instagram feed may look so stunning and on brand, and the photography has got all the right shadows and it paints the picture and it tells the story, they are walking into that digital storefront and it is so on brand. It is so desirable to paint that story about that brand. But if I'm walking into the physical space and that staff's tone just doesn't match the brand voice, I'm super disconnected.
100%.
Sensory contract that has been broken, or that the check-in or onboarding process feels very transactional. And a lot of times what I see is that brand strategy never truly gets translated into operational standards. That vision continues to live inside a founder's head, or it's in this like perfectly bound notebook up on the shelf, or we've went ahead and saved it to some sort of hard drive, and we only pulled out the branding guidelines, not the brand strategy guidelines. But execution lives in a team's day-to-day habits. And so bridging that gap is so crucial for me to do as a brand strategist. I take that very seriously, and I'm going to own that because I want to make sure the entire team is embedded with the foundational key elements of that mission, vision, values, personality. They're not following a checklist, because without it embedded into an SOP, it's going to depend on whatever mood somebody wakes up in? Absolutely not. That's what's going to kill that growth, that scalability, that evolution, the next steps of a business, if we don't have that vision alignment to follow through. That's what leads our team.
Yeah, and I think that's why, from you approaching this from the inside out, right? That inside approach where it starts to even become into framing around culture. And what's that culture and identity within organization? What I'm sitting here thinking, and maybe part of it's because I'm about to spend quite a bit of time there here in a couple days and weeks, is to spend some time in Orlando at Disney. But it's like, what kind of brands and organizations do you think do that really well? If you're thinking about all those facets, all those experiences, maybe mention a brand, if you wouldn't mind, that kind of does that well. Like when I pick up the phone to Disney, I know I'm going to get a certain kind of tone. When I show up at the gate at Disney, I know it's surprise and delight is the mentality, right? All through and through. Do they always deliver on it? No, but by golly, that's an expectation of the culture.
Yeah, I've got a couple. We all use Starbucks as the example, but you know what? They know my name, they know my order, or our local coffee shop. They're going to give that experience literally from their digital storefront into their physical storefront for sure. Their sensorial marketing is on point, just like Disney. But another one that people forget about is the library. I use the library all the time.
That's good.
Because there is something so warm and fuzzy feeling about walking into a library knowing I could get help for anything. And I let my guard down saying what I'm looking for and knowing that they're going to give me a sensorial touch on what the physical space is with books and chairs and well thought out. But also, if you have their app like I do, I'm a nerd. Yes, I love it. But jumping on their app and it's really well executed. I know where to get help. I know what to find, and working my way through their digital places and marketing touch points is another great example to kind of look at and reference, and how they're using their mission, vision, values, their foundational pieces into the senses of what they are displaying.
Right on. The moment you tell them you're looking for something in particular or need a space to use, it's like there has been just a jolt of energy that gets applied to somebody in the library. As somebody you see them activated. It's so amazing. Yeah, it's so amazing. I love that example.
I love this discussion of brands that really live it and prove it and things like that. Boy, of course, when I was on an expensive pharmaceutical expense account, right, it was always, for me, it was Ritz-Carlton hotels, because if you've been there once, you know it is a vibe and they keep it going. So very cool discussion. MC, let's talk. So there's a lot of aesthetic marketing happening right now. So everybody's infatuated with the beautiful visual, the strong vibe. There's more creative tools for us to use than ever before. And so we tend to use those, right? But sometimes it's very glitzy and glamorous and beautiful, but it's hard to see measurable impact, or at least to be able to measure the impact. How do you ensure sensorial branding translates into, true performance and profitability?
The last time I checked, and I don't know about you all, but vibes don't pay my invoices.
Well said.
I don't know about anybody else.
Very true.
They might feel good, but they don't pay well.
They don't.
To me, living in that lane does really nothing for my bottom dollar of my revenue. But knowing that with CereSense, to be more intentional to ensure that it was so associated with metrics that could be measured with KPIs was really, really important to discover all of those senses across 80 marketing touch points. Even though we curate for each individual client, I wanted to ensure that there was a metric associated with that and that those brand behaviors could be measured. And so looking at, hey, are guests returning or customers returning, or are they talking to you unprompted? Are they paying the rate without negotiating or leaving a review succinct with your vision or mission statement that is so in line? Making sure we have dedicated trackers and markers, and we are analyzing those month over month, quarter over quarter, year after year, because that sensory branding, building that into a marketing campaign or an ongoing marketing with intention is ultimately going to allow for loyalty and growth to happen. And one of my clients, a lifestyle product-based business, their website, their non-negotiables, I talk about non-negotiables a lot with voice, are balanced and calm. And so if I'm looking at measuring a website based off balanced and calm, I'm not looking at visitors to the website.
That's a good point.
I want to make sure that they are going room by room to make sure that they are completing the booking process or the purchase process, the time they're spending on the page, their bounce rate. Are they only going to one page? Because I want that calm, balanced nature for them to ease and flow through room to room is how we look at a website. Also, if we're integrating specific touch points, I have a client that had 25 touch points that they were using, and we implemented an additional 15 for their CereSense. And while that may sound like a lot of touch points, or we need to hire someone else to take care of all those touch points, it was things that were going to connect a little bit deeper with their current client. It was going to add to, there were things on their wish list, bucket list that they wanted to implement inside their conference. But seeing their year-over-year sensorial rate rise by 30% on their upsell was massive. Just by going through, how do we tap into the senses of an additional 15 touch points? It's not that many. And look and metricing those out, but seeing where those exist seasonally. Because a lot of times those don't happen over the course of the entire year. Those are only being dedicated toward a specific season or a specific campaign that's going on. And so the thing about CereSense is bridging the emotional creative side of the brain with the analytical side of the brain and discovering our own brand brain needs to live, but how are those senses being tapped into and measured at the same time? Otherwise, that's when the traps start. That's when we're jumping to copy competitors. That's when we start going down the rabbit hole of critiquing what we have or using something that's just a little bit more generic or jargoned, instead of really tapping into, hey, these are the senses that work to communicate that our team and our capacity feel comfortable with, but also how can we gain KPIs, ROIs from, and make this worth the aftertaste.
You know, when Brian and Matt asked me to join this podcast last summer, I did not know that I would get to be talking about such a niche marketing thing like marketing, sensorial marketing for hotels. And I know you do a lot, but this is one of the fun things about hosting this podcast is I get to talk with someone about a topic I would never, ever, ever touch. So let's talk a little bit more about independent hoteliers. Okay. So you work with hotels, you work with luxury brands. So talk to us about what blind spots you see when independent hoteliers specifically, when they are trying to scale, but you don't want them to lose intimacy and distinctiveness. Can you talk about that?
I will tell you that everyone is in the business of hospitality.
Oh,
everyone should own their mark in hospitality. We are all a part of that.
There's another quote.
Yes, hoteliers, but also keeping in mind that we are all a part of that type of industry. For hoteliers specifically, or boutique hotels, scaling rooms, amenities, services, and I think we've all been guilty of in our marketing professions, but we scale those before we're scaling standards or processes. And hoteliers specifically obsess over that personal touch, which, yes, we should be oozing out of all of our businesses, and all of our marketing should be doing that. But oftentimes when we decide to grow or start ramping up to grow, we start professionalizing everything where we've stripped away what made us special to begin with. And Matt, you talked about Ritz-Carlton, but there's something to be said about tapping into what made us so special to begin with and codifying that, making sure that our sensory experience is very outlined and described, that environmental consistency, both physical and digital, and then building systems that protect that as we grow, not hiring for efficiencies, but hiring for the personality, hiring for those values. And I'm not saying don't look at a resume, don't look at a skill set. We want to make sure that someone has the right skill set that can add to that growth to keep us evolving, keep us on our toes, keep us thinking differently. But at the end of the day, everyone is a representation of our brand foundation. So how can we look at a personality fit as well? Because we can teach our secret sauce, our spice, and make sure that someone feels comfortable representing our brand no matter what job they're doing on the team.
I love that you've already broken convention on a couple different things when you talk about all of us having a role in hospitality and thinking about us having that, thinking about hospitality first. And one of the things about this show is it's really about professional development. You've really shared, whether it's starting to talk about your specific career journey and moving from corrugated products to strategy, right? And when you made that move, you had to start thinking strategically. And not everybody is initially really adept at being a great consultant. And when you sit down and you work with that client for the first time and you're having to deconstruct their approaches, you're going to have to challenge some of their assumptions. What are some of the most often when you sit down with that client or that founder for the first time, what are some of the challenges or the assumptions that you're having to go through with them? What often are you most breaking down?
There are a lot that I'll go through too. There are a lot. We challenge a lot around here.
Yeah, top 3. Like we said earlier, I think pre-show we could do a 4-part on this. We'll just break down a challenge a week, and for the next 52 weeks.
I'll give you 2.
Okay.
First one is that we're different. I hear that a lot in every form and every fashion. And oftentimes digging into we're different, they're only differentiating ways that they can describe the functionality of their product, their service, their offering, but not always in how their customer feels, the emotional part. Thank you to Maslow's hierarchy of needs. That's my man. Gotta give props. Just because that foundational level is safety and security, and you've got that functionality working on a daily basis, doesn't necessarily mean that you've moved your way up that ladder or up that pyramid to self-actualization. So I say flip that mother upside down, start realizing your own potential, and not just you're different, but owning who you are, that trust, that expression, that self-actualization and realization to make your mark in this industry, in this world, and work your way back up to those foundational skills. So, and that's a lot of times where we sort of change things and unconventionally and disrupt a little bit more. Another one is that's a marketing problem. Man, this one stings for me a lot. This one makes me emotional to the core. I will say gladly until my last dying breath, I will fight the good fight. Put me in the ring for that one. Because usually that's an identity fragmentation. A lot of times executives or teams look at their organization as islands instead of as an ecosystem. I'm bringing order to that rebellion. That's for darn sure. Because it's an inside job first. Everyone plays a role. And matter of fact, everyone works for marketing. It's the other way around. There's a disconnect happening somewhere else. So although everyone loves to say that's a marketing problem, it's marketing's fault, they missed the deadline, so much blame is happening and pushing off because no one wants to look in the mirror. No one wants to realize their part in it. And we all work for marketing. So just because, as we say, deconstruct, that's the D in the diva mindset, deconstruction is not destruction. We just want to remove what's been performative or perfected all these years to make sure what's powerful surfaces. And that comes from internal realization. That's that self-actualization. Then we work our way back out.
Yeah, it gets back to that operational mindset of really living the mission every day, not just at the gala event, but every single day from the moment you pick up the phone to where you all started if I had to drop something off at the dock, right?
Yeah, wow. So much of what you just said resonates with me on so many levels, MC. I mean, you know, and Brent, I know you were in corporations, as was I for a long time, but how many times would we get the knock on the door and somebody would come in and say, hey, I'm glad you're here. We need some communications. We need some marketing, as if you could just pull it off the shelf and hand it to them, right? Because it becomes almost like a commodity, and it's very Yeah, so I really appreciate you saying that. And the other point that you made that I was thinking, and Julie, I'm not sure if you know this person, Brent, I think you do, but Eric Morgenstern, who's, of course, been a mentor to so many of us here in marketing and Morningstar Communications. You were talking, MC, about you hate it when people say I'm different. Eric's, one of his core philosophies is think excellence, not difference. Because if you think excellence first, people can feel excellence. They can't always feel difference. And I hope I'm not butchering Eric's philosophy too much there, but I know that's really a mantra that he's had for a long time. And it's right down Broadway with what you were saying as well about that whole difference thing. I think that's just super important. Getting us back, though, to your sweet spot, sensory branding. And I know you talked a little bit about this relative to things like web experience and that type of thing. But how does CereSense translate into kind of this day and age where everything's moved digital? We're doing our storytelling in a digital front, for instance, right? As opposed to the old days. And, we're in this world that's driven by so much that's online, whether it be online booking or whatever, attention spans are shorter. How do we get that good, solid sensory feel when it's happening in this sort of detached online space?
Believe it or not, your language cadence in your copy has a scent to it. So you can actually trace that scent, and that's what we do. That's one of the pieces that we do. But another way is, like I mentioned earlier, how you touch the brand through their brand photography, those shadows, those textures, every piece oozes, and you can really touch their brand, get more of a feel of their brand. That sound also translate alongside the journey that you're taking them on. So how do you sound in the consideration phase versus in the loyalty phase or in the engagement phase? How do you sound at each piece of that journey? And the goal here, especially on a digital front, is frictionless immersion. We don't want to create more friction. We don't want to create more touch points to have more touch points. That doesn't make any sense. Time is of the essence. Seconds are of the essence. But if a customer feels at ease when they're booking or when they're online and they're moving seamlessly throughout the website, and then they're working their way into another touch point online, your social media, and you have a very different style, a very different aesthetic. You're there, but you're not there. The tone, the type of graphics that are being used aren't aligned with what you're presenting on your website or within your email signature, and starting to break those down a little bit further. CereSense ensures that these digital touch points trigger memories of physical senses and that they're measured, because we want to make sure, regardless if it's throughout the entire year or seasonally or just for a certain campaign, that amount and level of consistency breeds loyalty. It's going to drive that advocacy, and it's going to transform the internal team culture. And then it's going to massively transform external customer relationships. And it's so important for us to ensure, hey, how is that brand smelling, especially with what's going on in the world? We look at some of those things a little bit clearer, not necessarily against competitors, but what's going on in their life, understanding the customer a little bit further. That's why I always say, deepen that connection, deepen that relationship. But also, what does that look like internally? If we're smelling a little bit off-putting, then what does that resonate to? Are we lying? Did we say that we were transparent and authentic?
Okay.
MC, you've been more than gracious with our interruptions, collective interruptions, and your time. Is there anything else you'd like to mention that we may have missed?
I just want to say that sensory marketing, sensory branding is not for the big budgets, is not for hoteliers or hospitality or product-based businesses. A lot of times when people hear senses or sensory marketing, they immediately gravitate toward, well, that's just for a product-based business. But this truly is about being super proud and loud of who we are building as an ecosystem. And I am just on this mission to reinforce the connection that we have with our team internally, with our customers, ensuring that everyone understands the human psychology behind their brand, that their brand truly is a human walking down the street, still working, communicating with, marketing to, selling to human beings, and protecting that. Then you marry that with metrics, and the extension is truth. It's growth. It's owning who you are, one touch point at a time, one sense at a time. Start there. And honestly, marketing becomes a lot more fun when we own who we are rather than pretending to be someone else or someone that we never will be, because that's not our journey. That's not our story. And we need to start owning our vision and what we're building for.
Well, folks, if you want to own that vision, as MC mentioned, you can find MC and her team at Fortissima Brands at www.fortissimabrands.com. MC, we've truly enjoyed the conversation today. I was so disappointed I missed you at BCS. I know the others had the benefit, but I'm so geeked we were able to have you on today. Thank you so much for the time.
Yes, thank you,
guys.
Thanks very much, MC. This was great.
If you found value in today's episode, check us out on our website, cultivatedmarketer.com. You'll also be able to subscribe to us, rate us, and leave us a comment on your favorite podcast platform, such as Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Stitcher. Remember, a garden of opportunity grows with Cultivated Marketer.